Do you, David, take this woman, your grandmother, to be your lawfully wedded wife? The church fell into a silence so deep that even the ceiling fans seemed to stop turning. Everyone froze. Elders shook their heads in disbelief. Mothers whispered under their breath. Some even stood up, ready to storm out. And there she was. Grace, 85 years old, dressed in a glowing white gown, her wrinkled hands clutching the bouquet as if it was her last lifeline. Tears streamed down her face. Not tears of shame, but of something far deeper, something she thought she had lost forever, the feeling of being loved. David, just 22, stood by her side, not trembling, not hiding, but holding her hand as though nothing in the world could separate them. His mother, Mary, sat in the front row, trembling in anger, her jaw tight with disbelief. The pastor's voice echoed again. "Son, do you take this woman as your wife?" David's lips parted. He looked into his grandmother's eyes, saw her desperation, saw her longing, and his answer was about to shake everyone's soul. But before he could speak, a woman from the crowd shouted, "Have you all lost your minds? This is an abomination." The church erupted. Some clapped in support, some cursed in outrage, and others simply wept. And just when the pastor raised his hand to calm the chaos, Grace whispered something into David's ear, words that changed everything. What did she whisper to him? And how did the whole madness even begin? Before I take you back to the very beginning of this unbelievable story, kindly subscribe and like this video so that you don't miss the shocking twists coming your way. This is one story you will never forget. Grace was not always desperate for love. Once upon a time, she had been a beautiful young woman with hopes, dreams, and a heart wide open to affection. But life carved her heart into pieces long before her hair turned gray. Her husband, John, was her first and only love. At 19, she had walked into his arms believing in fairy tales. He was charming, handsome, and spoke words so sweet she thought the stars had sent him just for her. They built a small life together, simple but full of hope. But then came the betrayal that would poison Grace's soul forever. One rainy evening, she found out John had been living a double life. Not only had he been unfaithful, but he had fathered a child with another woman in the same neighborhood. The whispers became knives. The shame broke her. Grace never forgave him. Even when John lay on his deathbed years later, begging for mercy, she could not bring herself to believe in the word love again. To her, love was nothing but a mask men wore to deceive. So she built her walls. She raised her 2 daughters, Mary and Ruth, with discipline but also with a warning. Do not be fooled. Love does not exist. People only pretend until they get what they want. Then they throw you away. Her words became law in her household. She repeated them so often that even her daughters believed them. But deep inside, Grace knew she was not just teaching them a lesson. She was pouring her pain into them like bitter medicine. Years passed. Mary grew into a strong woman, hard-working but hard-hearted, just like her mother. She married, but the marriage was empty. She focused on her only son, David. Unlike his mother and grandmother, David grew with a tender spirit. He loved laughter. He loved people. And most of all, he loved his grandmother. As a boy, David would run to Grace's room, sit on her lap, and listen to her stories. Though she always ended them with the same bitter advice. Don't believe in love, David. It is a lie. He never stopped hugging her after. Maybe love is real, Grandma, he would whisper. And she would shake her head. No, child. It dies the moment you marry. But as David grew older, he began to see the weight of sadness on her shoulders. She never laughed. She never danced. She never allowed herself to feel joy. She wore her pain like a crown. And David made a decision. He would change her mind. At 22, while his friends were chasing careers and girlfriends, David spent his time with Grace. He took her on walks. He cooked her meals. He told her jokes until her wrinkled face cracked into a rare smile. He held her hand when she cried silently at night. For the first time in 60 years, Grace began to feel something stirring again. It was not just comfort. It was not just gratitude. It was something she thought had died with her youth. Affection. But affection is a dangerous seed when planted in broken soil. One evening, as they sat together under the dim light of the veranda, Grace turned to him, her voice trembling. "David, do you really love me?" David smiled innocently. "Of course, Grandma. More than anyone." She stared at him, her eyes wet, her heart racing with something she could not explain. She had felt rejected all her life, betrayed, abandoned, forgotten. And now, here was her grandson, the only person who had made her feel alive again. That night, Grace made a shocking decision. She would not die without tasting what it felt like to be loved as a bride, even if only for one day. And so, with a trembling heart, she whispered the impossible to her grandson. "David, would you marry me?" David's spoon fell from his hand. "Grandma, what did you just say?" David's spoon clattered against the floor, the echo bouncing around the small dining room like a hammer against stone. He stared at his grandmother, unable to process the words that had just escaped her trembling lips. "Grandma, marry you. What are you saying?" His voice cracked. Grace, 85, folded her fragile hands on the table, her eyes shimmering with a desperation David had never seen before. "I know how it sounds," she whispered. "But listen to me. I'm not asking for years, not even for a lifetime. Just one day. One day where I can stand as a bride, feel love. Not deceit, not betrayal, not loneliness, but love. David, no one has ever loved me like you do." The young man's throat went dry. His heart raced. He had promised himself he would make her feel cherished again, but never had he imagined it would take this turn. "Grandma, this isn't right," he stammered, glancing around as if the walls themselves were listening. But Grace leaned closer, her voice trembling yet firm. "Right or wrong, I have lived 85 years with emptiness. I raised my daughters alone. I buried my husband with a heart full of bitterness. I built my life around the belief that love is a lie. But now, because of you, I finally feel something true. If you deny me this, I will die never knowing what it means to be loved as a woman, not just as a mother or grandmother. Please, David. Let me taste it." Her words sliced through him. He wanted to argue, to shout, to run, but how could he? How could he break the heart of the only woman who had sacrificed everything for his existence? That night, David lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the image of Grace's tearful face haunting him. His mind was at war. His love for her was pure, innocent, but her request twisted that love into something the world would never accept. Morning came, and with it Mary's piercing voice. "David!" She stormed into the living room, her hands trembling with fury. "What nonsense did I hear last night?" David froze. "Mother, you heard." "Yes," Mary hissed. "Your grandmother told me. She asked you to marry her. Have you all lost your senses? Do you want to disgrace this family?" Grace walked in slowly, her fragile body leaning on the wall for support. Her eyes were tired but unyielding. "Mary, you don't understand. You don't know the pain I've lived with all these years. I only want one thing before I die. One thing your father never gave me. Don't stand in the way of my peace." "Peace?" Mary snapped, her voice trembling. "By destroying our name. By dragging us into shame. What will the community say? What will the church say? What will God say?" David stood between them, torn apart. "Mother, please. It's not about shame. Grandma just wants to feel loved." Mary slapped her palm against the table. "You are my son, David. My only son. And I forbid this madness. If you even think of agreeing to this, I will cut you off as my child." The room fell silent. David's eyes flicked from his mother to his grandmother. His chest rose and fell as though the air itself had turned heavy. He wanted to shout, to protest, but his words got stuck in his throat. That night, whispers spread in the community. Neighbors had overheard Mary arguing with Grace. Within days, the story traveled like wildfire. "Did you hear? The old widow wants to marry her own grandson. Shameful. Abominable. She must have lost her mind at her age. Soon, elders gathered at the family compound. Men with gray beards, women with stern faces. They sat in a circle, their voices echoing like thunder. "This must stop," one elder declared. "If you go ahead with this, Grace, you will bring curses upon this family." Another spat on the ground. "What kind of lesson are you teaching the youth? That boundaries mean nothing. That marriage is a joke." Grace, frail but fearless, lifted her chin. "I have lived my life following rules that only gave me pain. Now I choose my peace. Let them call it madness. Let them call it shame. But I will not die without knowing what it means to be loved." David's heart pounded. He looked at her, then at the angry faces surrounding them. He wanted to protect her, but he knew the cost. If he stood by her, he would lose everything. His reputation, his friends, his future. Yet when he glanced at his grandmother's eyes, glistening with unspoken pain, he realized something terrifying. He could not let her walk alone. "Grandma," he whispered, his voice breaking. "If this is what you truly want, then I'll do it. I'll marry you." The room erupted in gasps, shouts, curses, and cries. Mothers wailed. Elders rose to their feet. Mary collapsed into her chair, clutching her chest. And Grace. She smiled. For the first time in decades she smiled, not bitterly, not sadly, but with pure relief. But that smile was short-lived. As the chaos swelled around them, a knock thundered on the door. It swung open, and there stood the pastor of their church, flanked by two stern-faced deacons. His eyes locked on Grace and David. "This madness ends tonight," he declared. The pastor's voice filled the room like rolling thunder. "This madness ends tonight." Everyone froze. The wailing mothers hushed. The arguing elders fell silent. Even the buzzing of insects outside seemed to pause. Grace stood in the middle of it all, frail yet unyielding, David by her side like a shield. Pastor Samuel, tall and commanding, stepped forward, his Bible clutched tightly in his hand. His eyes burned with both anger and sorrow. "Grace," he said firmly, "you have been a mother to this church for decades. You raised children who now sit among us. How then, at 85, can you attempt something that will shame us all? How can you think of wedding your own grandson?" Grace lifted her chin, her hands trembling but her voice steady. "Pastor, I have known only pain. From the day my husband betrayed me until the day he died, I have been living as if love was a lie. And for all these years I taught my children the same. But this boy, my grandson, has shown me what it feels like to be cared for, respected, valued. If only for a day, I want to know what it feels like to be a bride again." Gasps filled the room. Some muttered in pity. Others shook their heads in disgust. Pastor Samuel's face hardened. "Love is not about filling a hole in your heart with what is forbidden. This is not love, Grace. It is desperation. And you, David," he turned sharply, "do you realize what this will cost you? Your mother's trust, your community's respect, your very future." David swallowed hard. His palms were damp. But he met the pastor's gaze. "I know. But Pastor, Grandma has suffered enough. If my choice can give her peace before she dies, then maybe it's worth it." "Peace?" the pastor boomed. "Peace built on shame is no peace at all. If you go ahead with this, you will tear apart everything your family has built." Mary, still clutching her chest, cried out, "Pastor, please talk sense into them. My own son is ready to throw away his future for this madness." The room erupted again, elders speaking over each other, women cursing, neighbors whispering. Grace closed her eyes, the noise piercing her soul like daggers. Finally, she raised her trembling hand. "Enough." Her voice was weak, but it silenced the crowd. "Do you know what it feels like," she asked slowly, "to bury your dreams while still alive? To sleep beside a man who lies to you, cheats on you, and leaves you hollow? Do you know what it feels like to wake up every morning knowing you are unloved? For 85 years I have carried this pain. And now, for the first time, I feel something real. If you call it madness, then let me be mad. But don't take this away from me." Her words pierced the hearts of some. A few women wiped silent tears. Others shook their heads, unmoved. Pastor Samuel gripped his Bible tighter. His voice dropped, no longer thunder but steel. "Grace, if you proceed with this, you will be excommunicated. Neither I nor this church will stand behind you. And you, David, you will lose your place among us. Think carefully. The bond between grandmother and grandson is sacred, not romantic. Cross this line, and you will be cast out." The threat hung in the air like a storm cloud. David looked at Grace. His hands trembled. His lips parted to speak, but just then, his phone buzzed loudly in his pocket. He pulled it out, his face draining of color as he read the message. His hand shook so violently the phone almost slipped. Mary rushed to him. "David, what is it?" His voice cracked. "It's from my university. They've expelled me." The room exploded. Shock rippled through every corner. Some shouted, others cursed. A few covered their mouths in disbelief. Pastor Samuel raised his brow. "Expelled? Why?" David's lips trembled as he whispered the words that left the room in stunned silence. "They said my marriage plans with Grandma have gone viral online. And the school cannot allow me to remain their student." The phone slipped from David's hand and hit the tiled floor with a crack. The message burned in everyone's minds. "Expelled." Mary screamed, clutching her son's arm. No, this can't be real. "David, tell me it's not true." But David just stared at the ground, his chest heaving. His future, everything he had worked for, was gone. Pastor Samuel snatched up the phone and scanned the message with furrowed brows. His face grew pale. "It's real," he said grimly. "They have expelled him. The reason is clear. This scandal has reached the outside world." A murmur of shock rippled through the gathering. People began pulling out their own phones, tapping furiously. Within moments, gasps filled the air. "It's true. It's on Facebook. Someone has posted it on WhatsApp groups. Look, there's even a picture of Grace and David holding hands." Grace staggered back, clutching her chest. What picture?" A neighbor shoved their phone into her trembling hands. On the screen was a grainy photo of her and David walking together from the market last week. He had been carrying her basket, his arm gently around her shoulders. The caption beneath it read, "Shame. 85-year-old woman to wed her own grandson. Madness or true love?" Grace's legs buckled. David caught her before she hit the floor. His arms shook as he held her, his own tears streaming down. Mary wailed, her voice slicing the room. "See what you've done, Mother. You've ruined my son. You've destroyed his future with this madness." The elders murmured, some shaking their heads, others clicking their tongues. "Such disgrace. The youth will never learn if we allow this. This is why families must control their homes." But Grace, gathering the last of her strength, pushed herself upright. Her voice was hoarse but steady. "If the world has seen us, then let the world judge. But I will not bow to shame. For the first time in 85 years I feel alive. And if they call that disgrace, then let disgrace be my crown." David's eyes burned with defiance. He turned to his mother, his voice breaking. "Mother, you always told me to stand by family no matter what. So I will stand by Grandma. If the world turns against us, then so be it. I am not leaving her." Mary's face contorted with rage and despair. She fell to her knees, pounding the floor. "God, why me? Why me? What sin have I committed to deserve this humiliation?" Pastor Samuel raised his hand, trying to restore order. "Enough. If this family will not listen, then the church will act. This is beyond shame. It is poison spreading into our community. If you dare continue with this so-called wedding, you will not only be cast out, but every hand that supports you will be cut off." But Grace's answer stunned everyone. "Then cast me out." The words sliced through the air like a blade. Silence fell. The old woman stood, her back straight, her wrinkled face lit with fierce determination. I have lived too long obeying rules that broke me. This time I will choose for myself. David squeezed her hand, sealing his choice. The bond between them only seemed to grow stronger under pressure. But outside, the scandal spread like wildfire. Within days, their faces were plastered across social media platforms. Mockery flooded in. Memes, insults, even threats. Newspapers carried the headline, "Grandson marries grandmother. Community in shock." Students at David's university laughed, recorded videos mocking him. Some called him the boy who killed love. Others called him the cursed child. At night, he sat on the veranda with Grace, his phone buzzing endlessly with messages of hate. But when he looked at her face, so tired, so broken yet smiling faintly, he told himself it was worth it. "Grandma," he whispered, "no matter what happens, I won't leave you. If the world turns its back, I'll still be here." Tears filled her eyes. She reached out and touched his cheek with trembling fingers. "You are the only one who ever made me believe love could exist." But as she said those words, a sudden sound split the night. The crash of shattering glass. David jumped to his feet. The living room window had been smashed with a stone, and tied around the stone was a paper. He unwrapped it, his hands trembling. Scrawled across it in red ink were the words, "Stop this wedding, or die." The stone lay in David's trembling hand, its jagged edges cutting into his skin as though to remind him of the danger now staring them in the face. The red-inked words screamed at him, "Stop this wedding, or die." Grace sank slowly into her chair, her body trembling. Her lips quivered, but no words came out. Mary rushed forward, snatched the note from David's hand, and read it aloud. Her voice broke into a cry. You see what you've brought upon us. They will kill us. David, they will kill you." David clenched his fists, his jaw tight. "Let them come. I will protect Grandma with my life." Mary slapped her son across the face, her tears falling like rain. "Foolish boy. You've already lost your education, your reputation, and now you want to lose your life too? Do you think this is love? This is destruction." Grace struggled to her feet, her voice weak but steady. "No, Mary. This is the price of love. For decades I have lived without it. If it costs me my life to taste it now, then let it cost me." Her words silenced everyone. Even Mary, her chest heaving, could not speak. But the danger outside was no longer whispers or gossip. It had turned into rage. By the next morning, the compound was surrounded by angry neighbors. They shouted insults, hurled stones at the gate, and demanded the family show themselves. "Shame to this house. Send the old woman away. If you don't stop this, we will burn this place down." David peeked through the curtain, his heart racing. "They're out there, Grandma. They're serious. They'll hurt us." Pastor Samuel arrived with a group of deacons, his face grave. He raised his voice over the mob. "Go home. Leave this family. Let us handle this matter inside." Reluctantly, the crowd dispersed, but the threat remained in the air like smoke after fire. Inside, the pastor turned to Grace and David. His tone was no longer just stern, it was pleading. "Grace, listen to me. This is beyond you now. People are angry. They believe your actions will bring curses upon this land. If you proceed, they will not stop at threats. They will come for your blood." Grace's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "So what are you saying, Pastor? That I should let them dictate how I end my life? That I should die with this emptiness inside me?" David stepped forward, defiant. "No, we've come too far. Grandma wants this, and I won't let anyone stop it. Even if the whole world stands against us, I will take her to the altar." The pastor closed his eyes in frustration. "Then know this, if you go through with it, the church will not bury you when death comes. And death will come sooner than you think." The room went cold. That night, Mary knelt by her bed, weeping bitterly. God, please save my son from this curse. If he will not listen to me, then take this madness away by force. David, meanwhile, sat with Grace on the veranda. Her frail hand rested in his. Are you afraid? She asked. Yes, he admitted. But not of them. I'm only afraid of losing you. Her eyes softened. Then let us not waste time. Tomorrow we go to the altar. David nodded, sealing their fate. But just before dawn, a loud banging shook the compound gates. David rushed outside to see who it was. Standing there in the pale morning light were two policemen, rifles slung over their shoulders. Are you David? One barked. Yes, he answered cautiously. You are under arrest, the officer said coldly, for attempted incest and public nuisance. Before he could react, they grabbed his arms, snapped cold handcuffs around his wrists, and dragged him toward their truck. Grace screamed from the veranda, her voice breaking the morning silence. No, leave him. Take me instead. He's innocent. But the officers ignored her cries. As the truck roared away with David inside, Grace collapsed on the ground, her white headscarf slipping from her hair. She clutched her chest, gasping for air, her voice trembling through sobs. They've taken away the only person who ever loved me. The morning sun crept gently through the small cracks of her bedroom window, painting soft golden lines across the sheets. Amara stirred, her heart still pounding as though she had run for miles. She opened her eyes, breathing heavily, clutching her chest as if the weight of the world was still pressing upon her. But silence greeted her. No cries of women in pain. No whispering elders. No suspicious shadows lurking by her bedside. Only the calm rhythm of her own breath and the gentle rustle of curtains swaying in the morning breeze. She sat up slowly, blinking, trying to separate reality from memory. It was a dream, she whispered. The words trembled on her lips, both fragile and powerful. She rose from the bed and walked toward the mirror. Her reflection was calm, her eyes bright with a renewed spark. For the first time in a long while, she smiled, a genuine radiant smile that reached deep into her soul. She stepped outside, and the village air greeted her like a fresh blessing. Her husband, unaware of her strange dream, was waiting by the doorway. His eyes filled with that same quiet loyalty he had shown her for years. When their eyes met, Grace smiled again, this time with a certainty she had never known before. She leaned into his arms, resting her head against his chest. The rhythm of his heartbeat calmed her spirit, whispering the truth she now fully embraced. True love exists, not in the dramatic fears of her imagination, nor in the cruel rumors of the world, but right there, in the steady presence of the man who had walked with her through hardship, pain, and doubt. And with that smile, brighter than the morning sun, knew she was exactly where she was meant to be.